All right, what's good, everybody? Want to welcome you all to a brand new video from I am Nelson 89. Thank each and every one of you who's tuned into this brand new video. I appreciate the support. So without further ado, I wanted to do a CD collection slash albums ranked of one of my favorite rap metal bands known as Stuck Mojo. Now, if you're not familiar with Stuck Mojo, they are a rap metal band based out of Atlanta, Georgia. They were founded by Rich Ward and bassist Dwayne Fowler back in 1989. And they spent a few years, releasing demos and touring relentlessly around, I think, the southern region and other regions, developing a cult following. And, finally they signed to Century Media and they released, about 4 or 5 albums on Century Media. And since then, the band has released records through Napalm Records. Their activeness has been kind of sporadic. They went through different eras. Right now, Rich Ward, the lead guitarist and the founder of the band, he's more focused on his other band, which is Fozzy, which he founded with Chris Jericho, because they've really taken off in the last few years. So he's more focusing on that. But yeah, before Fozzy, Rich Ward, he was known as the founder and lead guitarist of Stuck Mojo. In my opinion, one of the greatest rap metal bands of all time. One of the few rap metal bands that actually got a lot of respect from the metal community. A lot of real metalheads really enjoy Stuck Mojo and will go to their shows. And that's a rarity because rap metal is seen as the black sheep of the metal community, in good reason in most cases, because a lot of those bands that really blew up and became popular sucked. Limp Bizkit. But anyway, the band, I think, in my personal opinion, they really exemplify what rap metal should sound like. I know Scott Ian always likes to say that Rage Against the Machine is the only band that really took what they did with Public Enemy to the next level, but I am confident enough to say that Scott Ian is totally wrong. Rage Against the Machine was not the only band to take what they did to the next level. Stuck Mojo was that band. I don't know if Scott Ian ever heard of Stuck Mojo, but he's wrong. I know you might say, well, that's his opinion, but I'm confident enough to say that man is wrong. It's Stuck Mojo. So without further ado, we're gonna get into this CD collection albums ranking. All right, so coming in at number 7 is the most recent Stuck Mojo album, and that's Here Come the Infidels. This came out back in 2016, and it was released through the band. Stuck Mojo Music. They released it, and they actually did a pledge when Pledge Music was still happening. They actually did a pledge, so you could, depending on what tier you purchase, you probably got some extra stuff along with this album and everything like that. But yeah, this is the most recent album that they've come out with, and it's practically a brand new lineup except for, of course, Rich Ward and drummer Bud Fonseray. But you have newcomers, vocalist Robby J, who I believe is also a vocalist in a band called Repentance. And then you have bassist Len Sonnier, who is added into the lineup. For the most part, man, I think Here Come the Infidels is it's a pretty cool album. It's definitely a bit of a return to form for the band, because the previous records, they experimented more with their sound. So this record is then returning back to that more thrashy groove metal style, as well as the more right of center, politically incorrect subject matter. I think the first half of the album is really solid. I would say all the way to tracks 1 through 7. I think it's pretty cool for the most part. I think they kind of retain that more politically incorrect subject matter. The heaviness is there. Those thrash and groove metal rhythms are still there. But when it gets to track number 8, the last 4 tracks kind of lose it a little bit. Like, particularly track number 8, Fire Me, and track number 10, Tambourine. I don't know. I'm not too crazy about those songs. They kind of remind me of like country rap or what they call hip hop, they just kind of remind me of something that maybe Ron Upchurch or I don't know, the Lax or Colt Ford or some of those artists in that lane. It just reminds me a lot of what those artists do in some ways, man. You know, kind of country rap, party rock type stuff. You know, every time I listen to these songs, I'm either imagining that I'm in some country bar somewhere or a country strip club where some good old cowgirls up on the giving me a lap dance or something like that, or I'm out at a keg party somewhere in the woods somewhere. That's what they remind me of. They're all right, man, but I think they kind of stick out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the record, man. But you know, like I said, that first half of the record I think is pretty cool, and then you know, Robby J Fonts as a vocalist, I think he kind of gives the band somewhat of a Faith No More lean in many cases. You know, he kind of is reminiscent of Mike Patton during the Real Thing era of Faith No More. But you know, it's a pretty decent album. I don't know if I want to say call it a comeback necessarily, but you know, they definitely had a return to form as far as their sound. So yeah, here come the Infidels. I'm putting in number 7. All right, so next album, number 6, is The Great Revival. Released in 2008 on Napalm Records. Napalm Records, one of my favorite rock and heavy metal labels. And this was during the Lord Nelson era. And this was actually the last album that they did with Lord Nelson. And yeah, this album, I read somewhere where they got a negative review from blabbermouth.net. And I think the gentleman that owns Blabbermouth, him and Rich Ward know each other. I forget how they know each other. Rich Ward explained it in the interview, but I think the album got negative reviews because of some of the subject matter, some of the, I guess, the more kind of right-of-center libertarian views expressed on some of these songs or whatever. I don't know. I don't know why the album got a negative review, honestly, because it's not like an overly political album or anything. The reason why I ranked this one higher than the most recent one is because I really enjoy how he really flexed his songwriting skills on this album, because he really showed what a great songwriter he is. Because there's some heavy songs on this record, but the way that they managed to blend it with more commercial appeal, might I say, because I would say almost every song on this album has the ability to be radio bangers, and I don't understand why I wasn't played on the radio, because all these songs have that ability. But that's what I like about this record, man. Rich Ward really showed what a great songwriter he was, man. He made some heavy music that was commercially appealing to the masses, that should have been commercially appealing to the masses, but I don't know, for whatever reason, man, people kind of overlooked it, man. But you know, I don't listen to this album a whole lot. I've listened to it a little bit more recently, and I'm liking it a little bit more better because of the risk that Rich Ward took with the songwriting, and how he switched things up, how he just didn't do the norm, you know. So that's why I respect this record so much, man. And it just really shows that Rich Ward is a great songwriter, man. He could write anything he wants. You know, he don't just have to do metal. He could do hard rock. But it does have that heavy groove that's blending in with more southern rock and blues and country. So it's really dope. It's a really dope album, man. I think it's one of the best Stuff Mojo albums? No, but I think it's definitely one that shouldn't be overlooked and that people should maybe spend a little bit more time with. So yeah, at number 6 is The Great Revival. All right, so number 5, I have Southern Born Killers, and this is the Napalm Records version. There was also another version that came out that was self-released by the band, by Rich Ward. I think they actually released it as a free download as well. But there was also a physical copy, an OG physical copy that you could have gotten that came with a DVD. I've seen that original copy available online, and it's quite expensive because it's a rarity. So Yeah, I settled with the Napalm Records version because it's the more accessible one that you can find easily and for a reasonable price. Hold on for a minute. All right, but anyway, Southern Born Killers. This was the first one that they did with Lord Nelson. He replaced the previous vocalist Bonz, and I think this is a solid album. It's definitely the beginning of a new era for the band. The songwriting's a bit different. You know, the more like heavy, aggressive thrash and groove metal type styles. I mean, the groove metal was still there, but it's not really too much of that thrash element, so to speak. That's in there. It's different. The songwriting is different. I mean, I've heard some people describe it as them being more of like a typical rap metal album. But there's also some experimentation that goes on here. A little bit of like kind of proggy elements that are added into some of these songs, and I think it was a solid album. I think it was a solid album, especially with them reconvening with new members in the band. I think they pulled off a really solid album. It spurred a little bit of controversy, I think, because of the song Open Season, which people accused the band of being Islamophobic or whatever. But Rich Ward has explained that it wasn't about being anti-Islam or anything like that. They were mainly talking about terrorists that we know what terrorists do. They cause destruction. That's what the song was mainly geared towards. It wasn't about being anti-Islam towards people or anything like that. Hope I don't get a strike for this, but anyway, man, I think it's a real good album. It's still got some heavy moments. It's got some heavy parts on there, such as the song "Metal Is Dead" and "I'm American," the title track "Southern Born Killers," then a really cool instrumental called "For the Cause of Allah," and then Yoko is a really cool track where they talk about, it's not about Yoko Ono, but they reference Yoko Ono in the song. It's really cool. It's kind of a more mellow or kind of atmospheric type rock track. And then the last three tracks, "Go," "The Fear Is All Around Me," and "This Is How We Swing," are some of the more heavier numbers on here. And I think those bonus tracks are only available on the Napalm Records version. But yeah, a solid album. I highly recommend that you check it out. So that's at number 5, right? Yeah, number 5. All right, so number 4 is the debut album, Snapping Necks. So now we're getting to that classic era of Stuck Mojo where Bonz was the vocalist. And yeah, this is the only album they did with original bassist Dwayne Fowler, who also co-founded the band with Rich Ward. And very, very solid debut album. This is probably the most funkiest album that Stuck Mojo has ever done because of Dwayne Fowler's presence. He was more of a funk and reggae guy. I know Rich Ward described him as being like Parliament Funkadelic meets Steel Pulse. So that funky element is really prominent on this album right here. And I always say that Snapping Necks could be seen as more of like a transitional record because Rich Ward as a songwriter was bringing in more his metal influences and the band was getting heavier. If you're someone that's familiar with the early Stuck Mojo stuff, like back when they formed back in '89 and the early '90s, before they got signed, you know that the band had more of a Red Hot Chili Peppers, Faith No More, Fishbone, 24/7 Spies type vibe. They were a lot more funkier. They put a lot more emphasis on funk rock back in those early days. And Rich Ward has said that he always wanted to bring that metal, that more heavy metal element into the sound. And I think him and Dwayne Fowler kind of would butt heads about that. But this was the record where he finally was able to really start implementing, well, maybe not be able, but he just started to implement those more heavier, aggressive metal elements into the sound. And I think that might have been the reason why that wasn't the reason why Dwayne Fowler left. He had to leave the band for personal reasons. But I think there might have been a little bit of like a conflict because of the musical direction where the band was going. But still, they turned out a really solid debut album. And Bonz as a vocalist, I would say that this is probably his more approach as a rapper. What I'm saying is, as far as his delivery, it's more typical of a rapper on this album, and that's gonna change after this, cause he's not gonna be like the typical rap metal vocalist that you hear, like maybe in like Rage Against the Machine or Limp Bizkit or whatever one of those bands that were popular back then. It's gonna change, and it's gonna really help set them apart from the other bands. But yeah, Snapping Neck's a very solid debut album, and but by this point, they had signed to Century Media Records, so this came out on Century Media. All right, so let's see, that was 4. Okay, that was 4. Kind of lost count. So number 3, for me is Declaration of a Headhunter, released in 2000, and this was the last album before the band broke up, and of course they reconvened later in the mid 2000s. One of Stuck Mojo's best records, one of their best albums. A lot of fans consider this to be their finest work. Very melodic, but it's still heavy. I would say it's probably their most complete record, because it's very much a combination of everything that they had done to that point, and it's all wrapped up into one on here. You got the melody, you got that a little bit of the funky vibe, the groove metal, the thrash metal, the heavy aggression. It's all here, and I would say it's probably one of the more political albums too in this era too. Very, very political, very socially conscious, lyrically and stuff of that nature. Bonz and Rich Ward and Bud are in the band. They have a different bassist on this album, and I'll get into that later. But the crazy thing about this record is that it's considered their finest record, but the band was pretty much only being held together by duct tape. Yeah, because they was pretty much about to implode. Rich Ward and Bonz weren't even speaking to each other at this point, and Rich Ward actually wrote all the lyrics on this album. He wrote all the lyrics, he wrote all the music, and because of that, it's a little bit different compared to the previous records. Bonz, he takes a bit more of a backseat role. He's on the record, don't get me wrong, but his presence on there is to me is more of like a kind of a unity thing, sort of like it's really not Bonz. Bonz is not really the star necessarily, it's kind of all of them in some fact. That's the best way. The bassist they have on here, Dan Dryden, he's also a really good singer, so he's more prominent on this record as well. And but it's just an awesome album, man. And I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite Stuck Mojo records, man. It's heavy and it's melodic, and that's one thing I really enjoy in metal, is when bands can be heavy and melodic, and they give it that on here. And it's crazy that this album wasn't more popular, because you could say Stuck Mojo was one of the pioneers of nu metal, and this album, I don't know, it should have been right up there with what everything like Korn and Limp Bizkit and all those guys were doing, but it didn't. I guess it kind of got overlooked, and it's crazy because they were pioneers of what those bands were making money off of. But I digress. It's still an awesome album, and it's a fan favorite amongst the Stuck Mojo fan base. And I'm glad to have it in my collection. I listen to it quite often. Usually when I'm on a Stuck Mojo kick, this is one of the main albums that I go to. So yeah, the Declaration of a Headhunter, man, is definitely one that should be listened to. Definitely don't overlook this one, man, because you're missing out on a true gem. All right, so number 2 I have is Rising, released in 1998. And this is the second album with the classic lineup of Stuck Mojo. So you got Rich Ward, you got Bud Fonseray, you got Corey Lowry on bass, and you got Bonz on vocals. And this is Stuck Mojo's arguably their most popular album. This is arguably their most popular album, man. And as you can see, man, they got the wrestling belt on here, because Rich Ward is a huge wrestling fan. That's how he met Chris Jericho and everything like that. He's a huge wrestling fan, so you got the wrestling championship belt on there. Got the guy sitting in the back. a really awesome album right here, man. I like the way that they took they took the groove and thrash metal and they blended it with like the southern rock and the blues. Oh man, they do an awesome job, because I believe Rich Ward, he was listening to a lot of like southern rock, Allman Brothers Band. I think Molly Hatchet. He was also listening to like Deep Purple and stuff like that during the songwriting process. So that's what influenced him, and that's the more of the direction that he took with this record, man, and turned out a true gem, man. It's one of their best records. And it's heavy too. It's heavy, but it's got that melody. It's got a lot of melody to it, man. A lot of real awesome groove, man. I really like that kind of southern groove that the band employs on this record, man. And just an awesome record. Man. And one of the best. At one time, this was Century Media's highest selling album up until Lacuna Coil dropped Coma Lies. But yeah, this was at one point the highest selling album on Century Media Records, man. But definitely a classic. One of the many albums I would recommend anybody who wants to get into Stuck Mojo that they start out with this one. And coming in at number 1, I'm pretty sure most of you already know what album I'm going to talk about. And that is none other than Pig Walk. Released in 1996, man. This is the second album from Stuck Mojo, and it's the first one with the classic lineup, because this is the first album that they did with Dwayne Fowler. Not Dwayne Fowler, Corey Lowry, who replaced Dwayne Fowler. And I didn't mention it. Corey Lowry he's the brother of Clint Lowry, who plays in Seven Dust. And all those bands, Seven Dust and Stuck Mojo and a few others, all of them are from the Atlanta area and stuff like that. So they were all like, they all came up together and everything in some form or fashion. But yeah, Corey Lowry, the bassist, is the brother of, I think he's the older brother of Clint Lowry, who plays in Seven Dust. But yeah, anyway, man, I could do a whole video about Pig Walk by itself, man. This is the greatest rap metal album that has ever been released, and more people should know about this album. More people should know about it, because it sounds like no other album in the rap metal genre. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it's heavy. It is so freaking heavy. Like, honestly, sometimes when I listen to this record, I don't really think it is you can really just sum it up as a rap metal album. It's just a heavy, extreme metal album. And here's why I want to say this, because Bonz, remember I said on that first album, Snapping Necks, Bonz, his style was more of a typical rap metal vocalist, right? Not on this album. On this album, his delivery, his approach is like a metal vocalist. He is coming hard. He's coming aggressive. I mean, his yells are very in your face. I mean, he is not rapping like a typical rapper on this record. He is coming like a metal vocalist on here. And then everything, man, the way that they take industrial metal and groove and alternative metal and thrash, and they just blend it all together and come out with a very heavy record. One of the most heavy rap metal albums out there, man. It's just so unique. And I have yet to hear any rap metal band sound as heavy as these guys did on this album. Nor have I heard any rap metal album as unique or outdo this record. I haven't heard a rap metal album yet to outdo Pig Walk. There's been some that's come slightly close, but none of them have overcome this record. And an interesting fact about Pig Walk is that it was actually produced by Daniel Bergstrand, who produced Meshuggah's Destroy, Erase, Improve. And it was also co-produced by Devin Townsend, who, he's known a lot for his solo career now, but, who's really known for his extreme metal band, Strapping Young Lad. And Devin Townsend wasn't even really a household name at this point, because Strapping Young Lad hadn't even released City yet. They only released that first album, which didn't do that well. But Daniel Bergstrand and Devin Townsend both produced this record. And man, is it a heavy one. honestly, man, I tell anybody, start with Pig Walk. If you want to get into Stuck Mojo, definitely start with this record. If you have any type of like objections to rap metal, I will tell anybody, go listen to Pig Walk, and that probably will change your mind about the genre. It will show you that there were actually bands within that subgenre that made good music that even the staunchest of metalheads would appreciate, man. But just an awesome record, man. So unique. And I like I said, man, I have never heard any rap metal band or rap metal album do better than Pig Walk. Simple, hands down. If there's an album out there, please give me the info, direct me towards it. All right, direct it towards me, man, and I'll check it out. But yeah, number one is Pig Walk. So that's my CD. That's my Stuck Mojo CD collection and albums rank. And before I end this video, I want to show two bonus CDs, honorable mentions. All right, so the first one, this is the HeavyOne album, released in 1999. This is a live album, and as far as I know, the only thus far official Stuck Mojo live album. Most of the songs are from a set that the band performed at the Masquerade Club down in Atlanta, Georgia. But I think there's a few performances on this album from a show that they did in Spain. And I want to say that the performances they did in Spain was when they was on tour with Pantera. I believe it's from that tour they did with Pantera around this time. And it also comes with two bonus tracks that are studio songs, Reborn and My Will. Reborn is one of Stuck Mojo's best songs. And Rich Ward has said about this album that that song was like it was pretty much a foreshadowing of where the band was gonna, take their music with the next record. So that song was a foreshadowing of where they was gonna go with the next album, which would have been a Declaration of a Headhunter. But yeah, I'm not somebody that's really big into to live albums. Honestly, I'm not somebody that's really big into live albums, but I definitely enjoy this one. I don't listen to it a whole lot, but when I do, I really enjoy it. So yeah, definitely check out HeavyOne if you want to hear. If you're somebody like me who never got to witness Stuck Mojo live, especially during this era, and want to get a taste of it, definitely check out HeavyOne. It's really good. And the next one is Violate This, released in 2001. This is a compilation album that includes like some rare like B-side songs, unreleased tracks, and early material that the band did back in the early 90s, and also like outtakes or different versions of certain songs. I didn't know this, but this album is actually a rarity. I didn't know this. A friend of mine who was also a Stuck Mojo fan, I told him about that I had not too long ago found this on eBay and purchased, and he said, man, that's really cool, man. That's a rarity, man. A lot of people have been trying to get that album. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I got a rare album. But yeah, man, this is a really cool album. Like I said, it's a compilation album of like rare songs and stuff. It's got some previously released songs that the band were initially working on before their breakup, like 10 Years and Revolution. And then there's other versions of like, there's a No Promise Tomorrow 97 version. And there's some cover songs like Wrathchild, like that's an Iron Maiden cover. Shout at the Devil, Motley Crue cover. Then there's a different version of like Southern Pride from Rising. And then there's a few songs on here that were written for Pig Walk, but they have a different vocalist. There were songs that were written during Pig Walk. I didn't know this, but Stuck Mojo had actually kind of broken up several times throughout their tenure during this period. And Rich Ward had like reformed the band with different lineups, and they had written different songs that ended up later being like classic songs by the actual band. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. My main reason for wanting to purchase Violate This though was to hear the the early songs from when the band, before the band got signed, like when they just had like when they was just an underground band with a cult following back in the early 90s. What is that? Love Has No Color, Hotlanta, Babylon, and Stuck Mojo Funk. Yeah, it's they represent a different band, because like I said, when Stuck Mojo first formed back in the early days, they had more of a Red Hot Chili Peppers, Fishbone, Faith No More type vibe, and that's more of the style that those songs represent, and they're really good songs. They're pretty good songs. I just wanted to hear that early Stuff Mojo sound, to get a taste of it, man. So, but yeah, those are a couple honorable mentions. The HeavyOne album and Violate This. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed what I talked about. Hope anybody out there that's not familiar with Stuck Mojo, that after this video they'll definitely go and check them out, because more people should know about Stuck Mojo. They're also rap metal band, and I think that if more bands had a kind of seen what Stuck Mojo was doing, you would have got a lot of better. We would have got a lot of better rap metal. Rap metal would be seen a lot better. We would have got a lot better rap metal bands, and I just think that they really exemplify what rap metal should be, because they are a metal band first, and I think that's what a lot of rap metal bands kind of miss out on. They're just lacking on the metal part. But Stuck Mojo always, at least during their from Snapping Necks onward, they always put metal first, and that's what I liked about them. They definitely put it first, and they definitely did a great job in blending those two worlds together. And shout out to Rich Ward, great songwriter, great lead guitarist, man. Shout out to his band Fozzy as well. Hopefully I'll be seeing them live around October, if things keep going the way they are right now during this whole situation. So I look forward to seeing Rich Ward live, hopefully. And as always, hope everybody has a blessed day. Hope everybody has a blessed week. And as always, love, peace, and music. Peace out.